Welcome, everyone. We're very happy to have you all here at our first isee Systems Community Model Building webinar on the drought. My name is Sarah Davey, and I will be one of the facilitators today in the discussion, along with Angelica Shonda, Hillary Rogers, and Bob Eberline. We're excited to offer isee Systems' first session, and we're looking forward to hearing your input about this complex issue. Before we get started, I want to go over the webinar software panel with you, for those of you who are not that familiar with it. On the left side of the panel is the Grab tab, and you can use that to either hide or display the panel, as well as toggle between full screen and window mode. The audio setup is on the right side, where you can set up the test to test the audio. And on the bottom is the questions section, where you can ask questions as well as provide comments and give your input into the session. And actually, that particular box you'll be probably using a lot today. So we'll be referring to that as the questions box, where you'll chat with us. So as you know, we've brought up the issue of the California drought through our question of the month in social media. And as the conversation progressed, the global relevance of this issue became clear to us. And we had some suggestions about trying to put together a session where we could discuss this as a community. And so we've put together this webinar. And at the end of the webinar, we're hoping that you'll be able to take home with you a model. We were also very surprised by, we knew that the topic was popular, but we hadn't anticipated the number of participants. So we had approximately, I think, 150 people sign up for this. And so as a result, what we're going to do is we're going to limit, because we only have an hour, we're going to limit the type of interaction that we're going to ask from you through chat and through that questions log. As we get comments in, we're going to try and combine similar comments to make it more efficient. When we're done with this webinar today, we'd like to follow up with you. We'll send you an email and with the results, and we'll try to summarize all the input that we got from all of you. And hopefully we'll have a model at some point that will actually simulate, and we can send that out to you. And if the session is great and we'd like to have a second session, we will do that as well. So briefly, just looking at the agenda for today, we're going to take a few minutes to find out more about who's participating in the webinar and your interests. Then we'll start building a model with Stella Professional. We'll discuss the specific aspects that we'd like to model, what factors matter, and how they relate to one another. There are two simple ways of participating today. We'll be using the chat. We'll be using chat in the questions log. We'll be taking a few polls, and then at the end, afterwards, we'll follow up with you, and we'd like to get all of your feedback. To get started, we're hoping that you could tell us what you want us to focus on today. So if you could use that questions log and give us your comments. We have a very diverse group of people here and with a lot of different interests. So if you could send in what you'd like to see us model, that would be great. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a poll. So the first question has to do with your background. So let's just take a few seconds to answer that poll, and we'll get a better idea of who's here. Okay, so thanks for your answers. And it looks like we have a fairly diverse group of people here. Now what we would like to do is get your suggestions about what to model. And we'll take a poll to see which of these things are of most interest to you as well. So what have we got? All right, so why don't we pick, oh, are we still getting more answers? Okay, we're still getting more answers. All right, let's see. So it looks like the most popular answer was the water usage and agriculture. So why don't we start with that? And on that note, I think I'd like to pass things over to Angelica Shanda, who's going to start the model building process.
Okay, so to do that, we're going to look at some shapes of behavior that will help us to define the problem that we're talking about today. So while I introduce you to those shapes, why don't you give us some input on the main variables that you think matter for that topic, so for agriculture and water usage. So just type into the question box some of those variables that you think might describe the problem in the best way, that would matter the most. And then we will sketch a graph and see how that problem develops. And for that, we're going to use some very simple shapes that help us to talk about it. So we have 4 shapes here, one of them being exponential growth. And that's a typical behavior that a population would show when it doesn't hit any constraints. So the more population there is, the more births there will be, and the faster the population will grow. And that can also be a compounding process, like with your bank account and the interest that you get on it. And it can also be the other way around with exponential decay. And then we have some goal-seeking structures that actually start out really quickly, but then they approach some kind of limits and they just slow down. And that can go in 2 directions as well. It can be a growth process or a decline. And then we have 2 other behaviors that are a bit more complex. And that is the S-shaped growth, which is a combination of some exponential behavior that occurs first, so the population might grow very fast, but then actually it slows down as there are too little resources and so forth, and then you have this kind of S-shaped growth. And what also can happen is if a population even grows too fast and it consumes too many resources, then there will be too little for everyone too quickly, which can lead to a complete collapse of the population. So these are the main shapes that we'll talk about today. And we're going to have a look at this in the problem of agriculture and water usage regarding drought. So I'm going to switch now to our software, and we're going to look at the main problem here. So we have those 3 graphs where I can sketch 3 variables that you chose. And I just put the shapes of behavior here for your reference. So the way that we will do this is you can type in the question box the type of behavior that you think a specific variable exhibits. So let's first define those 3 variables. So I'm just going to change this first graph here to the variable that you chose. And I see that Sarah shows me that we have demand for agricultural products. So I'm just going to change it really quickly. And then we have a second variable, which is drinking needs. And a third one,
well, we have
which is
choice of crops or economic value of crops.
Yeah, so we can, let's go for, then we have some economic variables here, and economic value of crops. So let me just show you all of those. So, and we're just going to start with the demand for agricultural products. So as I said before, that can develop in several ways, and also depending on the time span that we're talking about. And so what we did is we chose a time span that shows part of the past and part of the future. So we can talk about a really long-term development, and especially, so we talk first about what's leading up to the drought. So maybe you can, in the question box, give me some input on how you think that develops, and I can just sketch it here right for you, and you can just refer to those names to the shapes of behavior. You can tell me, okay, so from 2000 to 2015 or something like that, there's some exponential growth, but maybe then it goes into some decay and so forth. And I'm just going to try to sketch that for you. So you have one kind of coming thing that there's some exponential growth in the demand for agricultural products. So that probably happened in the past, right? And then there might be some S-shaped growth happening later on. That's what I see coming in now. Okay, so I'm just going to sketch it for you now. So what I see so far is that we might have some exponential growth going on here. No. And then it might turn into some S-shaped growth later on, because we have this problem with the water shortage, right? So at some point people might move away and the demand will go down. Someone also suggests that it could overshoot and collapse. So if things go really bad, and I'm just going to sketch this now also for you, we could hit some kind of limit, and then things could go really bad if we don't find some good policies. So let's stay with those two types of behavior. I think that's a good starting point for now. So we have two different scenarios also for the future. And we can switch to drinking needs now. So how are those going to develop? How have they developed in the past? So we already had someone say that the drinking value would also be, the drinking needs would also grow exponentially. What else do you think might happen in the future? So we're talking for now about the California drinking needs, because someone was asking if the demand is global or local. Let's just stay with the local behavior, because that's probably easier to deal with. So people think that the same behavior pattern is likely. So there might be also some exponential growth, and then we'll hit a carrying capacity and it will collapse. But some people think that there might also be a way to have it goal-seeking, because the population would adjust to that in the future. So we could, again, the way I understand this, we could also have some kind of S-shaped growth in here if people adjust. Okay, so that's actually also, again, two interesting behaviors. And then let's go to the economic value of crops. What did we see here in the past? So I've coming in that we also have an S-shaped growth here. Is that something that already happened in the past? Or is it also over the whole time span? Okay, we also have another suggestion. It could be cyclical, so depending on the time of the drought and then when that drought is over. So I'm just going to sketch those two behaviors. So again, it could be S-shaped growth. But another interesting suggestion is that it could just be cyclical. So maybe when this drought is over, it's just going to be it's just going to be possible to recover for the economic value. So yeah, so basically this was just a way of getting us started in talking about these problems. And we're going to move on now to see what exactly causes these kind of behaviors. So we're going to look at some variables. And we're going to do it in a new screen. And so yeah, we're gonna have 10 minutes for this, and we're gonna talk first about the main factors here, and just collect some variables without judging them yet, just to see what possibilities there are, and later on we will connect them in a model. And for both of these things we have 10 minutes. So I'm gonna just change this variable now. So we had so our first variable was the
demand for agricultural products.
Agricultural products, right. And then in the second part, we're going to look at the drinking needs, and then at the economic value of agricultural goods, of crops. Yes. Okay. So you can give me input for all three of these, and just again type it into the question box, and I'm just going to add them for you. So I'm going to change this one, see what's coming up. So please give us your input now about the demand for agricultural products. What kind of variables could matter? What could change that demand?
Population is one thing.
Okay, so that makes sense. Someone's got to eat. Then we have the economic conditions. Okay. The price.
Geopolitical conditions. Yeah. So you could for drinking needs also you would want a population as well.
Well, I'm going to stay with that one for now.
Yeah.
So with international trade, that's also interesting. How can we do the variable? Just exports maybe. Okay, and then with the weather, so the weather could be captured in maybe the amount of rainfall.
We're also seeing not just rainfall, but snowpack and the average groundwater already. So
what was that?
Snowpack.
I don't know. Sure.
So it's the amount of water already in soil.
Okay. So the soil condition. Should we also add that soil condition in some way?
Yeah.
Okay. How do we?
Soil conditions. That will be the health of the soil.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, the perceived quality of crops, that's a very interesting one. Coming from California. Okay, so it looks like it's getting full here. Maybe we should move on to the drinking needs and see what we can find out there. So please just let us know now what you think drives drinking needs.
Population would be one.
Okay, so we have population and water quality. Okay, that's of course. Just gonna move this, and then we have the water quality. What else do you think, Sarah?
Drinking needs. Let's see. Season. That might be seasonal as well.
So how can we transform that into variable? Does it
see? Or the price of water.
The price. Changes in infrastructure. Okay, that's also very important. Yeah. Then we have how much clean water do we have. That's actually related to the water quality, I guess. How much bottled water there is, what kind of businesses are out there. What the supply of water and people's income, because that might change what they're able to afford.
Public water cleanliness, so the condition of water.
Well, I guess we have that captured with water quality.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
The efficiency of delivery. That sounds interesting.
I like the cost of creating clean water. That's an interesting one.
Okay, that sounds good. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, I think we have summed it up quite well. Oh, temperature is a good one. They overlooked, I guess. Okay, yes. So let's move on to the economic value of crops and find some more influences on that.
I think the availability of crops from outside the system.
Mm-hmm.
And the type of crop.
Are we gonna
value?
Type of crop. We have to find it a bit further, I think. With a supply and demand ratio that is more general.
Yeah.
Compared to availability, right. I guess. The crop yield. So that again, that's part of the supply.
Oh, right.
Then we have available substitutes.
Another interesting one is the social perception of the value of the crops, of California crops.
Mm-hmm. So we also got that in the demand for agricultural products, so I can just draw it together later. Then we have amount of subsidies, then we probably change something. Cost of seeds. Do we have something else that is very different from all of these things?
Public policy is hard
to the price, of course.
Variable. I don't know.
Okay, so we see actually already that things come together with the other sectors. So I think we can start modeling. Should we do that?
Yeah, I think we're probably, that's a good time to move on to that.
Okay. So what we can do now is that we can just look at all these factors that we summarized here, and we can just drag them over into the model view. And let's just try and start with what we think is a central variable to begin with. So we just start with the demand for agricultural products and see how that is influenced by the things we just identified. And then, oh, that's in the sector, okay. So we're going to say in California. And then what I can do now is I can take any of these factors and just drag them over here. So just tell me a specific relationship. So let's say if the price is high, how would that influence the demand for agricultural products? Or the other way around. Okay, so let's start with the price. Sounds good. So we say that the price goes up as demand grows. So I'm just going to link this now. And I'm going to define that right away. And we're going to say that if the demand goes up, the price goes up, right? What else do we have? And the price has a direct effect back to the demand. That's very nice. So we're actually closing the loop there already. Oh. That was a mistake. Okay. Sorry, guys. I need to back up for a second.
Change that.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I've got to start over. Slight mistake here, but we're moving on. Okay. So price of agricultural products. And then we're going to have the demand for agricultural products. And I'm just going to get rid of these. Okay, so I'm going to link them up again. And then we have our first loop. Okay, so I'm going to define it again. And we're just going to move on like this. This is really nice. This goes really well. So, oh, wrong one. Okay, so this is the first balancing loop. So that's the demand for agricultural products goes up, the price goes up. But then, of course, people respond to that, and they're going to decrease their demand. And so this is already explaining one of the behaviors, right?
Yes.
So let's move on from there. What else do we have that influences the demand or the price? Sarah, do you have something for me?
Let's see. I think supply goes up with price and demand goes down with price. Let's see. Demands are typically broken into. Okay.
So we have demand goes up as export goes up. Is that something?
Can
we do something with that?
Sure. See, demand goes up if exports are increasing.
Mm-hmm. Just gonna. Oh, okay. So I'm just gonna do it. So we have exports to other states.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was that? I'm losing the line of it here.
Exports will make the price go up.
Okay, so
because the demand is higher.
Okay. Oh. So here we have something influencing the price.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. Oh, and demand will go up with population as well.
Okay, so we need some population here. The population of California. So we have lots of things driving the price, which will have a big impact on the demand in turn. Okay. Actually, we've got a good point here. So someone's saying that this shouldn't be a direct relation because actually, as there's more population, we have more demand. So maybe we should change this link.
Mm-hmm.
So as the population goes up, actually the demand goes up. And because the demand goes up, then we have the price going up. There we go. That makes sense. It's good if you guys watch out for that. So just tell us if we're doing something terribly wrong here, just because we have to focus on a lot of stuff at the same time. It's perfectly fine just to tell us. Okay, so quality of crops. So do we have to perceive quality of crops to change something about the demand, right? Maybe even
quality of crops will go up.
Okay. So the quality will increase the demand again. Okay, so we have someone saying that exports to other states actually also increase price for demand. But I guess so we should call this demand for products in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify that. Okay, so maybe is it an idea to draw in more factors from the other sectors here? Because what we want to do is to link up all these problems, right? To see how the behavior and the reference modes comes together, how that develops.
Okay. Also, I think we should bring up the lack of water during the drought,
okay,
and how that will lower the quality and the abundance of available crops.
So we don't have a supply of water yet, do we? So we're just going to add this?
Right. Very good. Yeah.
So, and that's going to change the availability. We don't have that yet in here, do we?
No, we don't have that.
So we're going to also add that. So we have the
crop yields or amount of...
What do we have over there? So we don't have a lot of new variables. So we have the crop yield.
Yeah.
And that's going to be influenced by water, okay?
By supply of water, yes.
And so the supply of water is going to influence the crop yield.
Right.
And so the more supply we have, the more crop yield is possible, right? And the more crop yield we have, the more supply we have here, and we don't have to supply yet for agricultural products, right? So we're just going to add a supply of agricultural, of crops. I'm just going to call crops now. Oh, what am I?
Oh, that's interesting. Also, there's a good point is that the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So let's finish this. So for the crop yield, which increases the supply of crops.
Yes.
Which decreases the demand because it's dealing with demand.
Okay.
Okay, so let's link these up. So supply of water increases this, which increases the supply of crops and decreases the demand.
Price. Right, and the supply should affect the price as well. Supply of crops will, so the higher the supply, the lower the price.
Bring this out here.
Yes.
So it's not in the white.
Oh, right.
So we could take the crop supply out again, because that's the same thing?
Right. Basically, the crop yield equals the supply.
Okay.
We can make those things the same. Simplify, yeah.
So it's going to influence the price directly, or by satisfying demand? So we get a lot of interesting input here. I think we have to focus on some single links a bit more because it's difficult for us to see where you guys want to go.
I'm seeing a lot of input or feedback about the supply of water and how that's impacting the yields and the supply and demand and the price.
Okay, so how are we gonna bring that in here?
So the let's see. I see the supply of water is affecting the crop quality.
Okay.
And so quality perception.
Put some crop quality in here. And so the supply also affects the quality of water, and that affects the perceived quality, okay.
And I think also another one that is being mentioned is just the rainfall affecting the supply of water.
Okay, we have rainfall in California that affects the supply.
Okay. So there's also lots of great feedback here. We've also got people mentioning environmental effects, other environmental effects of water supply. We've got the needs of individual crops, how some rely on more water than others. Okay.
So how are we gonna, let's see, can we get to a second feedback behavior here maybe, because all these things are influencing the price and the demand basically, but there's no feedback yet from how the price affects how much crop yield we're gonna have, right? How much are people gonna invest? Or also the price might even influence the perceived quality, something like that.
Right.
So lower demand crops. All right. Okay.
Oh,
so
income. Okay. Price will also, I think, is interesting that will influence the profit and the income of farmers.
Okay. So I think we're focused very much on demand right now. Let's try to see some more. How is the water quality affected? How are drinking needs affected? Let's try to get some more variables that we have already over here, not create a lot of new ones, because we have people here who say we should probably distinguish between different types of crops, which is perfectly true. But we're going to try to keep it simple and just look at the overall dynamics and relationships. So I'm going to make a little bit of space here to see how the water supply changes and the economic value of crops. So how about linking, so if you have a specific perceived quality of crops, how is that going to affect the economic value of crops? Should we look at that, Sarah?
Sounds good.
Okay. So we have economic value of crops in California. And so we just see that depending on what people think about that, it's going to change.
Right. And the price?
And
right, what the price?
Or is the price changing the economic value? It's a bit of a via price, okay. Price.
See what we're getting.
The supply of water needs to be linked to crop yield. Okay. And population. Okay.
Okay, one
so
thing, go ahead.
Someone has just mentioned temperature. Maybe we should bring that in here. So the temperature is also going to influence, what do we have here? The crop yield. Yeah, okay.
And there's another good point too when you're done with that about supply of water should be linked to the crop yield. Supply of water should be, yeah, it is.
Okay, nice. So we have one more here.
Oh, there should be another link from the crop yield to population.
Okay. Let's think of population. So how are we going to do this? I'm gonna bring the population back over to the other side, just to make it more visible.
Good idea.
So let me do this slowly. So yeah.
There you go.
It's becoming clear. Okay. Just gonna clear up a bit here. Okay, so here we have our population, and it's influenced by the availability of food. So we're still getting a lot of new variables here, I think. Let's again try to stick with the ones we have. Also in the economic value of crops, can we do anything with the cost of seeds or price per unit, subsidies?
We're having lots of feedback.
Oh, with temperature of air or water, that makes sense. I guess we're talking about air.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about how well those plants can grow. So population changes with crop yield because that's the amount of food that people have available, right?
There was a mention that the temperature in California will also influence the water supply.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So we get a lot of linkage here already. Okay, how are we doing time-wise? Okay.
Yeah, we have a few more minutes we can spend. At least.
Let's see if we can. We still have economic value of crops in California, with which we didn't do a lot more. Can you think of any other links from there? So depending on the economic value of crops, we have different amount of exports.
Economic value of crops.
You
could link that to exports to other states.
Yeah, so just like this?
Yes.
So then I think this looks like we're starting to have another loop. Let me see. Almost now. Can we close the loop from there? That goes into demand, the price, temperature. Quality influences price, influences value.
There's also a new factor, but that the price of agricultural.
So we have.
Who's going to see?
So we have someone saying that the crop quality will influence the price of the products, which will influence the economic value. Is that something to go with?
Yes.
So, I mean, crop quality, I just linked it to the demand, and it's basically influencing the price already. So I'm just going to go from the price to the economic value.
Yes.
Okay. So all in all, it seems like we still have one dominating loop in here, and that's basically the demand and price loop, which is balancing each other. But I guess that doesn't explain the whole behavior that we see yet, that there might be some. So with the 4 years of drought that have been going on now and that come back sometimes, how that leads to some exponential behaviors maybe. And that is threatening to lead to overshoot, right? Because we talked a lot about overshoot and collapse. So what would lead to that? Can we still have a second loop that is interacting with that?
So,
all right, we haven't talked about the demand for water at all, right?
Right.
So that's a very essential thing.
And as the value of the demand for the crops goes up, then demand for water goes up.
As the value goes up, the economic value, is that what you're saying?
No, the demand for agricultural products goes up.
Oh, as the demand goes up, we have
the
demand for water goes up. Yes, and then as that goes up, we
affect the supply of water, right?
Yeah. Via price, I guess, again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but so it's basically here something comes back. So we can actually change this arrow to make it more visible, because then we see how the water interplays. So we have the demand for agricultural products, which drives the demand for water, which changes the supply of water, the crop yield, and then again the price. So here we have another loop. Should we try and define this loop? So we have to, when the price goes up, the demand goes down. If the demand for agricultural products goes up, then demand for water goes up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If the demand for water goes up, then well, it's more indirectly, but the supply goes down. If the supply of water increases, then the crop yield, we have that, okay? And if the crop yield increases, then the price decreases, okay? So we have 1, 2, 3 minuses here.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like another balancing loop. So we have 2 balancing feedback loops here now.
I would say the supply of water would also affect the population of California.
Mm-hmm. So that would be another balance here.
And I think someone else is pointing out that the supply of water really is central to many of these issues, that maybe we're not catching all of those connections.
Okay. So how could the supply of water should probably be more central. So we maybe should do something with that. Let's see, there's a lot of things going on from that.
The supply of water would also impact the price of agricultural products, because the less water, the more expensive it is to grow these things, and so the price would probably need to go up.
So the supply of water drives the price of products. That's what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
I guess we already have. Okay, so you mean there should also be a direct link?
Well, not necessarily. If there's one happening already indirectly, that's fine.
So we have that indirectly here.
Okay.
So the population, decreases the supply of water. So we have a small.
Oh, right.
No?
Not directly.
Okay, not directly. So we have the population of California demands products. All right, so that's a smaller loop. Now I see. So as the supply of water goes up, the population goes up, and that drives the demand, and that drives, and then, okay, that's another balancing loop actually. Okay, so what do you guys think? Can we explain the graphs that we had before? Should we go back to those graphs? Can we explain the possible overshoot and collapse, or the possible...
Oh, wait, first we have a good question, which is, why does the supply of water going up make the population go up? I don't know if we're trying to...
Because, yeah, I guess basically, so people might move in because they have nice, I mean, they have an opportunity to have nice places to live. If they cannot have gardens anymore, then they might move away. Besides their basic need for water consumption anyways, drinking needs. So that would be one thing. Yeah, okay, we got some answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was actually a basic assumption that we heard about, right? That the growth of California was based very much on the assumption that water is cheap, and that's not the case anymore. So there's a big problem for population to move out.
We also had a comment that if people can't flush their toilets, they'll move.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's another thing. Okay, so we also have a question about if we have any variables yet that we could use as policy levers. We're not going to go there today. That would be a very nice thing to follow up with. So maybe we're just going to wrap up what we got so far. I think we already connected those three sectors that we identified really nicely, those three main factors, I mean. So let's recap a bit. So what we achieved today is definitely to define those three factors that might be very central and interlinked for this problem, for the drought in California. And that's a very good starting point. We didn't identify some loops, which is also really nice. That's a very difficult thing to do in such a short time. Yeah, basically, I guess, so we did see that the supply of water itself is a variable that is central to all these other issues. So which, of course, is always in a given problem, but here we put it in a nice systems map. And yeah, I guess we're going to see what we can do with this.
Okay.
And so, yeah, Sarah will wrap the session up.
Sure. Actually, I think we have a model that's been created during the session by Bob Everline, and we'd like to show that to you. So I'm going to turn this over to Bob to explain the model he's created.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So I've really enjoyed this discussion, and obviously I can't capture everything we've talked about because there's been an awful lot of things that have been said, but I wanted to sort of capture a piece of it and make a couple of observations. The first and probably key one is the recognition that the available water, groundwater, surface water is a stock, and there's a replenishment of that. I haven't put in rainfall and snowpack and the other elements that might replenish it, but that's a flow coming into it, and consumption is a flow going out. Now I've concentrated only on the agricultural portion of that and said that there's some amount of production that goes on which consumes water, and that production is based on demand, which we have down here for agricultural products, which gives the sort of intended production, but you can't produce unless there's sufficient water. And if there's not sufficient production, it drives up price, because we talked a lot about the price of agricultural goods. And that price, in turn, has an effect on population. We talked about people moving in and out of California. So I've sort of captured some of the elements of the things that we brought into the somewhat broader causal map. And this model is kind of interesting because what I've done here is I've put in a replenishment that starts out at 1,000. These numbers are just made up numbers. They're not relating to anything real, and then drops down to 500 at time 2025 or 2030, whatever it is here, and just to see the effects on available water. Now, one of the things that's not in this model is the fact that there's sort of surplus water for a long time in California before things came on here. So we started out actually in more of an equilibrium, sort of moving along, and the amount of water does this oscillation, and the oscillation, which is not a reference mode that people come up with, is a consequence of all of the negative feedback loop, which we've sort of presented in the discussion today. Negative feedback loops with delay can cause this overshoot and oscillation, and we see that similar sort of thing in price. What we see in population is basically starting out and sort of maintaining itself, and then when the water shortage hits, it declines probably a lot more rapidly than it would in real life. But we see this decline, and we see the other parts of the system sort of compensating for that. Water consumption has gone way down, but it's sort of oscillating around where it was, and the price is jumps up, but then just sort of oscillates around a new level, not that much different from what it used to be, even though population is substantially lower. And the system, because of the negative feedback loops, is going into an equilibrium with a lower population and a lower overall consumption of water. So as I say, it's a piece of the model, but it does demonstrate where we identify what should be a stock, what should be a flow, and some of the other elements of the how they play together. And most importantly, I think we get the surprising result that we think about all these negative feedback loops. We don't really think about the natural consequence of those, which is to bring the system into balance by moving something, in this case population, to a slightly different level. So with that, I will turn it back to Sarah for.
Okay, thank you, Bob. That was great. Thank you, everybody, for coming today, and you've given us a lot of good ideas. And as a follow-up, two things. We'd like to just quickly ask you a quick question and ask about how you thought the session went. We'd like to learn from this because we'd definitely like to do more of them and improve as we go. We'll also be following up, as I mentioned earlier. We're going to send an email with the model that Bob's created, and we'll also give you as much information about what all of you had to offer and provide during the session as input, because that was, I think you would all enjoy seeing what your peers have submitted. So that's it. Thank you very much, and have a nice afternoon.